They call me the Angel of Messina in the local dialect. But in the history books, I know by heart, I am something far worse. I am writing this confession on parchment that smells of sulfur and decay, hiding in a limestone cave overlooking a harbor that should be bustling with life. Instead, it is silent. The silence is heavy, broken only by the lapping of the tide against the hulls of 12 Genoese galleys that drift aimlessly, their crews dead before they could even drop anchor. I came here to save them. I came here with the arrogance of a god, armed with the medical miracles of 2080, believing I could stop the Black Death before it claimed 25 million souls. I thought I could rewrite the darkest chapter of human history with a single syringe. I was wrong. The history books were not just incomplete. They were waiting for me to write the final, fatal line. The blackened sores on the bodies down in the village. They aren't the plague. They aren't Yersinia pest. There's something I brought with me. Doctor Aris. And I am not the savior of the 14th century. I am its executioner. To understand the magnitude of my crime, you must understand the world I left behind. By the year 2080, humanity had effectively conquered biological death. We had nanobots to scrub our arteries, and genetic editing to firewall our immune systems against every known pathogen. We lived in a sterile, polished utopia where illness was a choice, not a fate. But we were bored, and we were arrogant. I spent my career studying the Great Mortality of 1347, obsessed with the mathematical cruelty of the bubonic plague. In my eyes, it was a statistical error, a glitch in human progress that required correction. When the Temporal Integrity Commission approved my jump, it was under the strict parameter of minimal intervention. I was to introduce a synthesized, aerosolized antibiotic strain into the rat population of Sicily, days before the infection arrived. It was supposed to be a surgical strike against the fleas. But upon landing on the rocky coast of Sicily in October 1347, I made a choice that was entirely human. I couldn't just treat the rats. I saw the people. I walked into the village of Messina, disguised as a traveling healer from the east. The squalor was the first thing that hit me, a physical wall of stench, a mixture of rotting fish, untreated sewage, and unwashed bodies that my 21st century senses could barely process. The poverty was visceral. I saw a fisherman collapsing on the cobblestones, coughing up blood, his lymph nodes already swelling. The history books said the plague arrived on ships, but local transmission often started days before the official docking. My compassion overrode my protocol. I activated my portable medical gauntlet, disguised beneath a heavy wool cloak, and administered a dermal spray of Panacea X, a broad-spectrum immune booster from my time. The effect was immediate. Within hours, the fisherman was standing. His fever broke. The swelling subsided. The village saw a miracle. I saw science doing its job. For 3 days, I was drunk on my own god complex. I moved through the narrow, winding streets, treating children, elders, and dock workers. I cured dysentery. I mended broken bones with osteosealants, and I pre-vaccinated them against the coming plague. I felt the rush of righteousness. I was saving the ancestors of the Renaissance. I was ensuring that millions of potential artists, scientists, and philosophers would live to see adulthood. The villagers kissed the hem of my robe. They brought me offerings of stale bread and watered wine, calling me Il Santo, the saint. I accepted their praise, unaware that my very presence was a biological dirty bomb ticking down to zero. It started on the 4th morning. I was woken by a frantic pounding on the wooden door of the shack I had commandeered. It was the fisherman, the first man I had saved. He wasn't sick with the plague. He was dissolving. His skin had taken on a terrifying, iridescent sheen, peeling away from the muscle and wet, gray sheets. His eyes were wide with a pain that had no name in this century. I rushed to him, my diagnostic scanner humming softly in my ear. I expected to see a mutation of the plague, perhaps a rare resistance to my treatment, but when the holographic data scrolled across my retina, my blood ran cold. The pathogen wasn't Yersinia pestis. It was Staphylococcus epidermidis, *a common, usually harmless skin bacteria found on every human being in 2080. That was the variable I had ignored. In the future, our bodies are battlegrounds of Our bacteria have been exposed to centuries of super antibiotics, sterilization fields, and genetic tampering. The bacteria living on my skin, inside my gut, and in my breath were harmless to me because my immune system was engineered to keep them in check. But here, in 1347, these weren't harmless microbes. They were apex predators dropped into a nursery. To the medieval immune system, which had never encountered such aggressive, antibiotic-resistant biology, my common skin bacteria was a weapon of mass destruction. It didn't just infect, eat, consume. It bypassed their primitive white blood cells like they didn't even exist. I watched in horror as the infection spread with terrifying velocity. It wasn't carried by fleas or rats. It was carried by me. Every hand I shook, every child I patted on the head, every patient I examined had seeded them with a superbacteria that turned their own bodies against them. The symptoms were grotesque. The necrosis didn't wait for days. It set in within hours. The Black Death of history caused buboes and blackened extremities. My plague caused the body to liquefy, turning soft tissue into a gray sludge as the bacteria feasted on the collagen. The village didn't die in weeks. It died in 48 hours. The Genoese ships finally arrived on the horizon on the 5th day. They were the ones historically blamed for bringing the plague to Europe. I stood on the cliffs and watched them row into the harbor. They expected to find a bustling port. Instead, they found a necropolis. The silence was absolute. There were no church bells ringing, no market cries, no dogs barking, just the sound of the wind whistling through empty houses filled with the liquefied remains of the people I had sworn to save. And then, the ultimate irony struck me. The sailors from the ships came ashore to investigate. They walked through the contaminated streets, breathing in the air I had poisoned. They would get back on their ships. They would sail to Genoa, to Venice, to Marseille. I hadn't stopped the plague. I had replaced it with something that had a 100% mortality rate. I ran back to the cave where I had hidden my hands were shaking so violently I could barely input the coordinates. I had to leave. I had to go back to 2080 and warn Tem stop myself from ever leaving. I initiated the launch sequence. The machine hummed, the temporal drive spinning up. Then, the lights turned from blue to a violent, flashing red. A mechanical voice echoed off the cave walls. Biohazard containment breach detected. Level 5 pathogen present. Quarantine protocol initiated. Launch aborted. The machine knew. It detected the biological material on my clothes in the air. To protect the future, it stranded me in the past. I tried to override it, screaming until my throat was raw, smashing my fists against the indestructible alloy of the hull. But it was useless. The safety protocols were absolute. I was the patient zero of an extinction event, and the timeline was sealing me in. I sat there for hours as the battery reserves drained, watching the lights of my time machine flicker and die, leaving me in the darkness of the 14th century. The paradox settled over me like a shroud. The legends of the Grim Reaper that would emerge from this era. The figure in the dark cloak who brings death with a touch. That isn't a myth. It's me. Now, I live in this cave. I have buried the machine under tons of rock so that no one will ever find the technology that doomed them. I watch from the cliffs as the ships leave the harbor, carrying my microscopic children to the rest of Europe. I calculate the spread in my head. Without the resistance of the 2080 genome, this superbacteria won't just kill a third of Europe. It might clear the board entirely. I am writing this in Latin, carving it into stone tablets, hoping that maybe, just maybe, some archaeologist in a hazmat suit will dig this up 1,000 years from now and understand. We thought we were gods because we could conquer time, but in the end, we were just carriers. I came to cure the past, but I am the disease. This story explores the terrifying fragility of history and the unintended consequences of playing God. If this journey through time and biological horror kept you on the edge of your seat, please subscribe to the channel for more immersive narratives. Hit the like button to support our work. Click the notification bell so you never miss a paradox. And leave a comment below. If you had a time machine, would you risk changing the past, knowing the slightest error could destroy the future?